This one is from a lot of comments I get. I got an oil furnace, I pushed the button several times, I never could get this thing to light. And you're saying you shouldn't push it more than twice. Am I in trouble? Well, yes and no. If the oil furnace is not spraying oil and you push the button several times, or no oil is coming out, I shouldn't say spraying, there's no oil coming out, then you don't have a problem. But if there is oil spraying out or dribbling into the combustion chamber, whatever it is, it's going to build up in that combustion chamber. And from my experience, when someone says, yeah, I pushed it 4 or 5 times, you double it or triple it. And then, well, my uncle was over and he pushed it a couple of times, add 10 more. Okay? So this is what's going to happen. These things are going to get out of control. Well, I just wanted to demonstrate what happens when someone does push the button and there's oil spraying into the combustion chamber. So let's watch what happens. Okay, before we go any farther, this unit here is a test mule. It's not an installed furnace. It's got a short piece of vent with a vent damper on it, but it is not set up as an operating furnace. This I just use for some tests now and then. Okay, we have the equivalent of about 20 pushes of the reset button. The CAD cell relay on this thing will operate for about 40 seconds before it shuts off. So if I had pressed this thing 20 times, and if you get the repairs done and then just simply fire the furnace off, this is what's going to happen. Okay, now you can see that smoke pouring out of there. Smoke is also pouring out of the heat exchanger because this thing has a heat exchanger top just loosely installed. Okay, it's sitting there running. Now, it's putting a bunch of smoke into that chimney. Let's see what happens when I shut it off. Okay, now if you look up there, it is still smoking because there's so much oil in there that has not burned. Now this could get you in trouble simply because it's going to burn very hot. I do not recommend lighting something off that's had its button pushed 20 times. So, what have we learned from this little episode? First, if you know oil's been put in there, do not light the thing off and just say everything's wonderful. There is a case for lighting it off and letting it run for half a second or a second and then shutting it off, and that starts a fire in there that doesn't get quite as intense as if the burner is on. Yeah, I guess you know, this thing really makes a big mess when it's burning that way. You know, we put soot all over that heat exchanger. So the heat exchanger really does need to be cleaned. Here we're looking at the vent pipe was put probably about 1/8 of an inch of soot on it. This thing was reasonably clean when we started out. Here down at the heat exchanger itself, see what we can. Okay, looking in at the heat exchanger itself, probably about the same amount of soot in this thing that was deposited over just that one failure to ignite. Okay, it's understand, 1/8 of an inch of soot is the equivalent of about 1 inch of fiberglass insulation. So it's an extremely good insulator, and that's pretty much what it did right there. To the point where you could call the fire department and have them standing by when you fire it off. But if it's been pressed that number of times, especially on these older units, because there's some of these older units went longer than 40 seconds. Some of them went 70 seconds. That's a pretty old, that's probably in a stack switch. Some of the really, really old stack switches went 1.5 minutes. There could be all sorts of things happen. And of course, it kind of depends on how big the furnace is too. This is a little tiny furnace. This thing is got a 1/2 gallon nozzle in it. A lot of these things that have got a gallon, gallon and a half nozzle, there's a lot more oil in there. And once that oil starts burning, it's pretty intense. You know, you might be able to put it out with a fire extinguisher, but I wouldn't want to guarantee it. So, hope this gives you some ideas on what to do if you have a lot of oil in the combustion chamber and you're trying to figure out what to do next. To summarize, best practice: replace the combustion chamber, clean it all out, and fire it off. That's it on this one.